Okay. Um, let's get clicking. Let's see. Where were we? $122,000. See if we can get to 130,000 today at least. I guess I'll finish the Moby Dick rooms. I didn't mention this last time, but yeah, there's text on the wall. It's like the first paragraph or so of Moby Dick, because I made a tool that could convert text into buttons. It's like, oh, Moby Dick is public domain. That's some free text I can use for buttons. So yeah. What to talk about today? I think yesterday I was or was it yesterday or was it? I don't remember. Time doesn't make sense. But whatever. Last time I was doing this, I was like rambling about how Leon should be in Smash Brothers. Because I feel like Resident Evil is probably one of the biggest Japanese series that has like no representation in Smash. Specifying Japanese because I think there are, like, this is something I've talked about before, maybe on these streams, probably if I've ever talked about Smash before, but it's something that's been on my mind that, like, Smash doesn't have a lot of Western representation. Which makes sense because Nintendo's a Japanese company, and like most of Sakurai's connections are with other Japanese companies. And that seems to be how like most of the third-party stuff happens. But like when we're looking at the big Japanese companies and the big Japanese games, I think Resident Evil is kind of a surprising absence. So I guess it's not that surprising because like Capcom already got Street Fighter, Mega Man, and then Monster Hunter as a boss. So adding like yet another Capcom series might have been a bit much for the last game for Ultimate. But for the next game, I do feel like Resident Evil, especially now, is in a really good place where it would be a good series to get into Smash. And I think the best character to represent Resident Evil would be Leon, because he's like 2 and 4 are generally considered the best games, and then he's in 9. And just generally, I think Leon is pretty easily the most popular Resident Evil protagonist. Capcom really wants to make Chris the main character. They keep insisting, we gotta have Chris in all the games. We gotta at least mention him in all the games because he's the main character, and he's just such a boring guy. Just a boring character. He's just got nothing going on. I'm sorry, I'm sure there are fans of Chris, but he is just of the main for really the main 6. Like, if we're going to include Sherry and Barry. Oh, I mean, I would say 7. Like, Sherry, Rebecca, Barry, like Chris, Jill, Claire, and Leon. The main survivors from the first 2 games. Chris is just the least interesting of all of them. I don't know. I don't like I don't like Chris. And I kind of hope we don't get another numbered Resident Evil game with him anytime soon. But it seems like that's probably what's going to happen. Anyway, Leon, I would say, is the most popular. So he is probably the most likely to get into Smash if Resident Evil gets a Smash character. But I've been thinking about, like, what would he do? Because he isn't like... I don't know, most characters in Smash have, like, some powers, some abilities or whatever, some iconic stuff that could easily translate into a platform fighter or a fighter in general. But Leon's just like a guy who's good with weapons. And, like, he's a skilled guy. But he is just a guy. So, like, I do feel like there's 2 kind of... Well, not 2. I'd say there's a very easy direction you could take in putting Leon in Smash, and that is just, like, taking all of the... like, he's used so many weapons. So, like, all the different guns, and knives, the hatchet, his various melee attacks that he uses, the roundhouse kick, of course, and just, like, slap those on a character and call it a day. And, like, that would be fine, I think. I don't think people would necessarily complain. It would be like, yep, that's Leon. He's doing Leon stuff. Like, the other idea I had was something like Jill in MVC2 and Frank West in MVC3, where they kind of summon zombies as a way to attack. Like, that could work too. But the thing is, I feel like Smash has gotten a lot better about representing the source material, and specifically the source, like the gameplay of the source material, the experience, like what it is like to play the source game, as the series has progressed. Like, you look at some of the early characters in 64 and Melee, and they don't really feel like the game they come from. Like, Samus and Donkey Kong are especially bad about that. Like, they don't... Like, Samus technically has a lot of the abilities she has in a Metroid game, but they don't really work the same way as they do in her games. And just generally, like, it doesn't... Her gameplay style doesn't evoke Metroid. And in comparison, you look at, like, Olimar, it feels like you're just playing Pikmin and Smash Brothers. You look at any of the fighting game characters, it feels like they were just plucked from their home fighting game, and now they're in Smash. Or like Steve, he's just like... It's Minecraft, you're playing Minecraft. In Smash. So, like, with Leon, I feel like what it would be... Okay, so he would be the first Resident Evil character in the game. I think... I'm trying to think. And, like, there's so many characters, I may be missing one, but I'm pretty sure that would also make him the first survival horror character. Like, Resident Evil would be the first survival horror series represented with a playable character. So, like, if we were making a moveset for Leon, I would want to try to represent Resident Evil as a whole, and I would want to represent the concept of survival horror, and also would want to represent the, both sides of the Resident Evil series, the horror side and the action side, which I think Leon can represent both, since he was in both 2 and 4. So, like, looking at the Resident Evil games, I'm trying to think, like, what are the iconic mechanics that really make Resident Evil stand out compared to other horror series. I feel like I have one for both sides. I have 2 iconic mechanics, one for both the action and one for the horror. In the action games, I feel like what really separates them is like the melee system, where you shoot a guy in a weak point, it stuns them, and then you can run up and do a powerful melee attack. So I think one mechanic you could have with Leon is that with the handgun, there is a chance that when you hit a character, it might stun them and put that little, like, triangle over the head that happens in RE4 Remake. And then you run up and hit the A button, or, like, the standard attack button, and he does a special, just some sort of special attack. Probably the roundhouse kick. And is, like, an extra powerful, like, more powerful than his normal melee attacks. So that's, like, one small mechanic that I think could be interesting to represent Resident Evil that I would include as part of his moveset. But I think the bigger one is what I think defines the horror side of the series, and that is inventory management. Which I think is kind of, I don't know. I was gonna say it was a big thing in survival horror games in general, but now that I think about it, maybe not. Like, Silent Hill doesn't have quite the inventory issues as Resident Evil, and, like, other horror games don't have as much inventory management, but I don't know. It's a big deal in Resident Evil, having, like, limited inventory space and limited resources to work with. So I think it would be interesting to incorporate that into Leon's moveset. And I think what I'd do for that is that, like, hitting down B, like, his down special, like, he kneels down and it opens up his case. And the case is, I mean, it would require, like, testing to figure out exactly how this mechanic works. But I think the case would work similar to RE4, how you have a grid, and some items take up multiple spots on the grid. And like, yeah, there's like limited space. And I think maybe you could have like the case would open up on the HUD like with Heroes magic selection thing. So like you hit down B, the case opens up, and it's like a 4x8 grid, let's say. And he's got 3 guns in it. There is the handgun, the shotgun, and the Requiem. Which is kind of I feel like the 3 tiers of guns you get in Resident Evil. Which is like the basic handgun, the more powerful shotgun, and then the super gun that doesn't have much ammo at all. And I could see that like his neutral B is that he uses the gun that's equipped, and he actually has to, you know, hit down B and navigate through the case and select the gun, like another gun, if he wants to switch to that gun. And then, of course, he can have, it's not just the 3 guns in the case, it is lots of items, and he has to, you can get items by, like, hitting enemies. They will have a random chance of dropping an item. One second. There we go. And what items can you get? Well, of course, you can get ammo. The guns use ammo. Because it's a survival horror game. Like, if he doesn't have ammo for a particular gun, and he tries to use it, he'll go click, and he'll cycle to the next one. But yeah, I think that this is like a big part of his moveset, is that he has limited ammo, and he has to recover ammo by hitting enemies and hoping they drop some ammo. We could also implement like the crafting mechanics, where they can drop small or large gunpowder. And you can combine gunpowder, like 2 smalls make handgun ammo, small and large make shotgun ammo, and 2 larges make Requiem ammo. We could also do healing items, the herbs, and I feel like this would definitely need to be balanced, but like giving him, like if he could use space in his inventory to store herbs, he's kind of at like putting himself at a disadvantage, because he's, you know, that is space that could be used for other things. So like if he saves up 3 herbs and makes a triple green herb and heals himself, like maybe yeah, okay, he deserves like a 15% heal. And then like maybe a single green herb is just like 2%, and a double herb is like 6%. So like he has a healing mechanic, but it's not excessive, and it is also kind of random. Then there could be grenades. I think that could be a side B, is to throw out a grenade, and he could have, you know, the 3 Resident Evil 4 types of grenades: the frag grenades, incendiary grenades, and flash grenades. He could have, like, the knife, and this wouldn't be used for melee attacks or parrying. I think his melee attacks would be, would use the hatchet that he got in RE9. But I think the knife could be a unique mechanic where if he has a knife in his inventory, he can hit the special button when someone grabs him to break out of the grab, just like how knives work in Resident Evil. And it, you know, it's a one-time use thing. He, like, slashes the knife, breaks out of the grab, and the knife breaks. But yeah, that's generally how I see, like, his mechanic working, is that he gets random drops when he damages enemies, and he can kind of, like, you, when you're playing as him, can kind of decide, like, okay, what do I want to use my inventory for? I only have a certain amount of space. Like, what am I going to... Am I going to prioritize magnum ammo, handgun ammo, grenades? You know, the knife is really helpful, but it's a one-time use thing. The green herbs can be useful, but maybe they're not worth the space. So yeah, that's how I generally imagine, like, his main gimmick would be. And I think that would be an interesting way to do a survival horror character. And, like, most of his attacks, of course, would, like, his A attacks would come from the games. I like when they're kind of grouped and themed, like, okay, all the tilts are going to be this thing, all the smash attacks are going to be this thing. So I think, like, his, like, tilts would be hatchet attacks, hatchet swings, and his melee attacks, I mean, his smash attacks would be kicks. I feel like his roundhouse kick is so iconic. And of course his back throw has got to be the suplex. And for his recovery move, that's hard because I feel like there's not a lot of vertical movement in Resident Evil games. And when there is vertical movement, it's usually a helicopter, and it usually crashes. But a character who does have a lot of good vertical movement is Leon's good friend and probably wife, Ada Wong. She has her grappling hook. So maybe she lets Leon borrow it. There's already a lot of characters with grappling hooks, so I would want it to not just be a grappling hook. And what I imagine there is that instead of grappling to the ledge and then coming to hang off the ledge, it just pulls him up and he doesn't attack. And, like, he just jumps straight up back onto the stage without even going to hang on the ledge. He just, like, goes, I'm explaining this very poorly. Like, he shoots out the grappling hook, he zips up, pops up back onto the stage, and doesn't attack. Because Ada does that in her DLC for RE4 Remake, and it's really cool. And I think that would make it, like, that would suit Leon's style of just being this cool badass versus the other characters who have grappling hooks and just kind of like hang there on the edge. or other tether recoveries. And then for his final smash, I don't know, I feel like the rocket launcher is too obvious, but it's also obvious for a reason. It is the ultimate attack in Smash. I mean, in Resident Evil, like, most of the games end with blowing up the bad guy with a rocket launcher. And the games where you can unlock an infinite rocket launcher is like, that's where you've won the game. It's just like, yeah, you don't need to do anything else. You have an infinite rocket launcher. Nothing is going to be a threat here. So I guess his final smash would have to be the rocket launcher. On the stage, and for the Resident Evil stage, it has to be the RPD, right? But you could also maybe make an argument for the village in Resident Evil 4, but I don't know. The RPD is just like the most iconic location in Resident Evil. Like, it's now been in 3 of the 9 main numbered games. And I guess the mansion is also iconic, but I don't know. I feel like the RPD is more iconic. And more unique, I think. There's a lot of mansions in video games. There aren't a lot of police stations. Of course, now, now the question is, like, how do you make that work as a stage in Smash Brothers? Because it's, like, indoors. Do you just do the ceiling of the RPD? I think that's kind of boring. I mean, do you do an enclosed stage, like where maybe it's the main hall, the main room, and characters can't be killed off the side, they can be only killed off the top. Maybe, I don't know. I definitely feel like that shot, like that angle when you first walk in and you see like the statue with the wings and like that desk. Like that is just a very iconic image that would work very well as the background of a stage. The other thing is music, because I think Resident Evil has some pretty iconic music, but like the most iconic music from the series is usually the very calming save room music. I don't know. There is music in the games though. That they could draw from. And they could do like a RE4 save room battle remix. What else? Of course, he's got to, I think I mentioned this before, he's got to have his dumb one-liners, and they have to, like, write a dumb one-liner for every single character in the game. So, like, on the victory screen, it'll be like, let's see if I can think of one. He beats Fox and he goes like, looks like you've been outfoxed. Just like do a dumb one-liner for every single character. I actually wonder, like, is that part of his character in the Japanese version? Because, like, so many of his one-liners are silly wordplay, so I wonder if they've got, like, they must have different jokes in the Japanese version. That use, you know, wordplay that actually works in Japanese. Yeah, I always like grip the mouse too hard. I'm not really a PC gamer, so I'm not used to doing, like, holding the mouse for long periods of time. Like, even when I'm using the computer to do work, I avoid using the mouse. I do keyboard shortcuts when I can. I watched a video earlier today about, like, or was it, when was it? I don't know. It was about, like, which Spider-Man characters haven't been in the movies yet. Or which Spider-Man villains haven't been in the movies yet. I think they've, you know, it's actually surprising. Like, they've hit most of the big mainstream ones. There's kind of a few that haven't been in movies at all, and like a good handful that haven't been in like a Spider-Man movie fighting Spider-Man. Like the fact that we still haven't gotten Spider-Man teaming up with Daredevil against the Kingpin, at least in, you know, live action. I was thinking, like, you know, everyone always jokes about Big Wheel because it is such, like, a very silly concept for a character. It is a character to... I don't know if he was created as a joke, but very much works as a joke. But, I was thinking, like... Oh, there we go. That's all the Moby Dick rooms. Unironically, could work in a movie. Not as the main villain, but like as a big, maybe like the opening act guy that, like a big spectacle to open the movie with, and Spider-Man has to take him down. Just like a guy in a giant wheel, just like rolling down New York City. I think, unironically, could be fun as not a character, but as a spectacle moment. But, like, car chases are fun, right? We like when Spider-Man is chasing a vehicle and trying to stop a vehicle. So it's like that, but an even bigger vehicle. And it's a silly vehicle that has, like, one wheel and guns. I am really curious to see, like, what is the deal with Spider-Man Brand New Day. Because, like, there's such a strange assortment of characters in that movie. Oh god, this room is very hypnotic. There's kind of a lot of pretty notable, like, superhero stuff going on this year. Like, I guess Spider-Man. We got Invincible. We got The Boys final season. We got Avengers. Games, we got, the Invincible Versus game. Actually, is that this year? It might be this year. It might not be. But Marvel Tokon. There's like, I don't know, a lot of stuff going on. It's interesting because, like, feels like people have been saying, like, oh yeah, the superhero hype is over, superhero stuff is dead, and then something comes out and it's a huge hit. It's like, okay, maybe it's not that people were tired of superhero stuff, maybe it's just that there was too much not very good superhero stuff for a while. Which I think is what happened. There was this gold rush after the Avengers was such a huge hit. Like, all the studios were like, ooh, we gotta do that. And just kind of pumped out a lot of superhero stuff, and most of it wasn't very good. And even, like, the MCU, which kind of paved the way and had it figured out. Like, I feel like the executives in charge kind of got a little bit greedy, and they were like, hey, if 2 superhero movies make us money, then 4 superhero movies will make us 2 monies. And that's how it works, right? And they didn't really get that it's not really scalable like that. That I don't know, once you start pumping stuff out and lose sight of the quality, you start to lose people. And that's what happened. And, like, even during that era, like, I'm someone who's gonna say there has been a lot of, like, good stuff in the what is widely agreed to be Marvel's flop era. But I also understand why it is perceived as the flop era, because they went from, this kind of incredible string of hits, just like very unprecedented amount of success. And then kind of suddenly they started having movies that got bad reviews and got, didn't do well at the box office. And then, like, all the shows that were kind of messy, and they started, like, feeling kind of formulaic. And yeah, definitely, like, they pushed it a bit too far. But it does feel like they have Um, they're figuring it out. They're like righting the ship. I mean, it has felt for a while like they knew what the problem was. It was just like it was going to take time to adjust because they had so many things in production. They had to, like, we weren't going to see the fruits of their changes in their attempts to right the ship for a little while. Because it's a big ship, it takes time to turn. But I do feel like we have started seeing that, because I feel like their overall quality over the past couple years has been much higher, and they haven't quite gotten back to that that mainstream pop culture position. But I do think you look at like Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, Agatha All Along, Wonder Man, like they've been putting out some pretty good stuff, I think. I feel like the only big miss in the past couple years was Captain America 4, but that was just, very famously had a messy production. So that one, I don't know. It's that one felt like kind of the last gasp of the flop era to me. They just announced Wonder Man Season 2, which that excites me. Both, just because I did like Wonder Man, so I want to see more of that character. But also just the fact that they announced this Season 2, because it's so, like, early on when they were doing these shows, it was like I'd watch a show and it would be 6 episodes, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's cool, I can't wait to see more of this character. And then it would just wouldn't announce a Season 2. I was like, okay, so we're not. I love Kate Bishop. We're not getting more Hawkeye. Okay. Moon Knight had its problems, but Oscar Isaac wasn't one of them. He did a great job. He made a very fun character that I wanted to see more of, and like the way that show ends feels like a tease for Season 2, and that never happened. Like Ms. Marvel, just like some of the most perfect casting ever, and she's like 25 now or something, the actress. Because she hasn't been anything for like 3 years. We never got a Season 2. She-Hulk, I mean, I know it's an unpopular opinion. I really liked it. And I think there was a lot of room to grow. I think the problem with that one is that they were making a sitcom with a large CGI budget. And that was kind of something I expected would be an issue, like when they announced it. But I think if they could have figured out how to make it on a smaller budget, I don't know. Like Loki was the only live action show that got a second season. until Daredevil. Oh, I got one viewer, and they immediately left. Sorry, viewer, I was rambling about Marvel stuff. Speaking of Daredevil, that starts today, I think. I think it comes out in a few hours. I'm really curious to see if they... I don't know, because season 1 of Daredevil Born Again was messy, to put it lightly. Like, you could tell it was like they had a show and it didn't work, and then they kind of like made another show that used parts of the first show, but it was a different show. So it's like there were some parts that felt like one show and other parts that just felt like a completely different show. But now they have, like, that got reworked, like, in the middle of when they were like, hey, we're kind of in our flop era, we need to, like, fix stuff and figure out how to make all this work and make stuff people like again. And that was, like, one of the drivers of them kind of realizing they don't know what they're doing with TV. Because they were making shows without showrunners. They were just making it like a big movie, and that didn't work. Because they were like, yeah, we made movies. We're pretty good at that. Let's just do the same thing, but on TV and split it up into 6 episodes. And obviously it didn't really work. So, like, at some point when they realized, like, their version of Daredevil was just not clicking, they kind of realized, oh, like, the entire TV industry kind of figured out this whole thing a while ago. Like, this whole thing with showrunners and the writer's room, and they kind of figured out how to run a show. Let's just do that. And there was, yeah, a big change to how they were doing shows, and it seems like the fact that Wonder Man is getting a second season is a consequence of that. So that, I don't know what the chances are that, like, those first like some of those first generations of shows might be brought back for a second season. I feel like Moon Knight, it's shocking that we never got a second season, because I feel like that was... I had my issues with the show, but I felt like it was generally one of the more well-received shows. Like, I actually saw people talking about it. It definitely boosted the popularity of the character. I feel like despite the issues with the show, there was interest in more Moon Knight. And it's very surprising that we didn't get any more Moon Knight. Okay. This one on the floor is going to be annoying to do. Yeah, but anyway, like I think Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to be really good. And I don't know, I've seen some people being real down on Doomsday. I have a good feeling about it. I think Marvel knows that that's kind of like, hey, this is, if we're gonna get one thing right, it has to be this. So they've been kind of, I think there's a reason we don't have any other movies coming out besides Spider-Man and Doomsday. Spider-Man, like the next 2 years, this year and next year, is just Spider-Man and Avengers. And there's a reason for that, and it's because they know that like these are the two that they need to get right, and they're putting like all of their focus on knocking these two out of the park. I think a lot of people are going to go see Doomsday, and just because it's like it's been 9 years since an Avengers movie. I haven't really checked into the recent ones, but it's the Avengers. Let's see what they got cooking anyway. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh yeah, this is why we liked these things in the first place. This is why this whole thing got so big, because it's fun when a guy from one thing interacts with a guy from a completely different thing, and they just like bounce off each other. And we saw a bit of that in the teaser where like the Thing shows up in Wakanda. He's just like, yeah, I'm from Yancey Street. And like that's fun. That's what's fun about comic books, is like you got all these weirdos, and like what happens when this weirdo talks to this other weirdo. Is this gonna be it, or did I miss one? Yay! Finally. And especially we're bringing in the X-Men from the Fox movies, and there's absolutely like a fan service reason for that. What the hell is this room? Man, I'm telling you, sometimes I make these rooms and I don't remember making them. It's like the back rooms, I guess. It just keeps, like, this game is making itself without my permission. God, I wish that was the case. This game would be done by now if the game was making itself. I don't actually wish that, because I do like the fact that I am kind of intentionally hand making this game. Like, that is no procedural generation. I am making every room by myself with my own 2 hands and keyboard and mouse and whatnot. But I haven't actually made any new rooms in a while. That's why I'm playing it now, because I want to finish up the testing so I can get back to making rooms so I can release this game. And it'll sell 1 million copies and I'll have $1 million. And I'll be happy finally. Because money, it turns out, is actually the solution happiness. And the saying that money can't buy happiness, that was invented by people who have money so that you don't take their money and become happy, so they can be the only ones who are happy. I'm being a little bit snarky here. Genuinely, I don't know if anyone's gonna buy this game. But I do feel like it's something I have something I do need to finish. I've gotten so far in making it so far. I mean, so far is 20% done, but still. I do feel like it's something I need to finish. I have set out on a quest. It may be a mad quest, but it's a quest. Hour. Okay, so I just got to 130,000. I think I'll finish this room and then call it. Ah. There should be a button right there. Why is there not? Oh well. Maybe I'll add it back in once I get started. Like, get back to playing. Like, get back to making the game. I can't add it in now because it would throw stuff off. By now, I don't mean like literally right now, but just like generally this build, the way I store the data about like which buttons have been pressed. Like if I change a room, it might mess up. It will mess up the labeling. Or maybe not necessarily change a room, but like if I add or remove any buttons from a room. God, the pulsing, like the slight pulsing of like the pink, it's so hypnotic. I didn't like mean for it to be that. I just wanted a bit of movement on the screen, so it didn't feel so static. It just kind of feel like I'm brainwashing myself. I guess I'm going off screen a bit, aren't I? I have an ultra-wide monitor and I'm only capturing the 16:9 in the middle of it, so if I go off screen, that's why. I don't know. I might call it here. My hand's getting cramped. And I got my 130,000 goal. watched the latest Resident Evil movie, the one from 2021. Just saw it was on streaming and decided to give it a shot. I heard it was terrible. It got really bad reviews. Honestly, I kind of liked it. But it's more... I don't know if I would say it is a good movie outside of the context of being a Resident Evil fan. Because it, like, they basically tried to squeeze the whole Raccoon City era into one movie. So they're basically doing Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 at the same time. And they had to make a lot of changes to make that happen. But it doesn't feel like they're changes that were made because they didn't like the source material. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. It felt like changes that were made because they were very familiar with the source material and they were like, okay, how can we make this fit? It's like, I think the Mario movie is a good comparison, where it's like, they're telling a story that's kind of like generally evocative of Mario, and there are a lot of very specific, very small references, well, big and small references to the games. So it's like, if you go in expecting the exact same story as the games, you're gonna be like, no, they changed that, and they changed that, and they changed that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, yeah. But it's not like the Paul Anderson movies where he was like, I just want to watch my hot wife do cool stuff. And I'm going to occasionally give some random character the name of a character from the games. And like, honestly, not even gonna hold it against Paul Anderson. Like, I think his Resident Evil movies are mostly pretty bad, and mostly do not care about the source material. But if I had a hot wife and had the budget to get her to star in action movies doing awesome stuff, I mean, I can't blame him. It's like, fair play, man. I don't think you produced anything that's really worth watching, but you do you. You had fun. You're the one that's married to Mila Jovovich, and I'm not, so who is the winner here? I mean, he made a bunch of movies specifically for the purpose of making his hot wife look awesome. I'm making a stupid game specifically for the purpose of wasting everyone's time. So, I mean, who's to say what is the greater artistic endeavor? It is kind of a bummer that like that Resident Evil movie was such a flop, and I can't like I understand why. I'm not sure if it's a good movie. Like I said, it probably isn't really a good movie. But I had fun watching it as a Resident Evil fan. It was like they were clearly kind of rushing through the Raccoon City part so that they could set up. Okay, here's the main characters. Like they didn't want to spend 3 movies on Raccoon City, right? They like Resident Evil as a franchise is so much bigger than that one incident now. So it's like, okay, let's kind of do this in one movie, and then in the next movie, let's do Code Veronica. They clearly set that up. And then obviously they were going to do Resident Evil 4 after that. Like they clearly had plans for like a big franchise that just kind of didn't happen because the movie flopped. And that's always kind of a bummer because it's like they clearly have these plans that if they kind of paid off, I bet like a show where it's like I bet the second season would have been awesome. Like the first season was okay, but the second season would have been awesome. Or like the movie was like, oh, the sequel would have been awesome. And that's kind of like I feel like what they did with Leon in this movie was kind of weird at first. They made him kind of a bumbling idiot who doesn't even really know why he's a cop. But I kind of think that's a fun angle because it would have been so interesting to see like how to see that character develop into Resident Evil 4 Leon. To become like this hyper competent badass who's still kind of a dumbass. It was like I can see the vision. And that's what I mean, is like they made changes, but I can see the vision. It doesn't feel like it was disrespectful of the source material. It just feels like it feels like the kind of changes you get from like the MCU versus the kind of changes you get from like Sony's Marvel movies. Like there were reasons for these changes, but we didn't really get to see them come to fruition. I am curious about the new one coming out this year. Apparently it's a completely original story with like none of the characters from the games, but it is, you know, being done by someone who is at least a fan of the games and has like what did he do? He did Barbarian, he did Weapons, like so he's on kind of a hot streak right now. But I do hope it feels like a Resident Evil and not just like a zombie movie called Resident Evil. Alright, here we go. Last button for today. So where are we at? Almost 10 hours. 132,000. I think I started at 122,000, so I did 10,000 today. Alright, which door are we going? And I'm going to go through one of these doors and then call it. Come back in. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't remember making this room, so I don't remember where any of these doors go. Let's see. Oh, what is this? Okay, I know where this is. And I've been here before. Actually, I am curious. Like, I think this, no. Over there, maybe? Here we go. It was on one of these balls. think it was the center one. Or maybe this one. There it is. Hooray. Okay. I think this is going to take me back into the maze room. Yeah. There we go. That's going to drive me insane. Well, I say drive me. I'm already insane. Okay. There's no other doors in here, so this is... I guess I'll do this one. Let's see what else is in here. Oh, okay. Okay, so both of these are kind of isolated rooms, so they're good to do next time. Yeah.